If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The More Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.
The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the views of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliates or sponsors.
Hello and welcome to another edition of The More Show, which is sponsored by the Mindscape magazine. On today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest Rita Hraiz. Now, Rita was born in London in 1963 to an Indian father and a Lebanese mother. At a young age, she was deeply moved to go to church regularly to develop a connection to what she understood to be God. Rita joins us now to speak on Soul-Centred Astrology, which helps you to understand the tools or skill sets that you have been given in this life to see if you are living your potential. This also helps you to understand the challenges and karmic patterns. Rita Hraiz, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
Now, Rita, just tell us a bit about your background to begin with.
Since being a very young child, I felt energy very strongly in my body, what I now understand to be the Shakti fire from the center of the earth. And at the age of 4, used to actually stand outside of a neighbour's house attempting to try and levitate, which seems very obscure and ridiculous. But as my life unfolded in Ealing and eventually got into this, world and life, started to realise that I had a lineage that was very connected to Tibet, even though my father was Hindu and my mother a Catholic and a Lebanese woman Catholic. So I went to school in Ealing and was one of the very few children of colour in that area in the 60s. And but I had this dream to be a clothes designer and had quite a successful career very young. So I've always had these two things running very concurrent. A very commercial, integrated side of myself, and another side of myself. This is a deep unfolding of consciousness. So to cut a long story short, for the last 25 years, I've been studying esoteric psychology and esoteric astrology and ageless wisdom, and I'm very connected to feeling that my purpose is to inspire people to recognize that there is a divine plan that's unfolding on this earth and we're not in chaos. And I don't adhere to the whole feeling of this doom and gloom theory that it all ends at 2012, for instance.
Okay, so this childhood that you had, would you say it was a sort of normal childhood?
I don't know about absolutely normal. It was normal that in as much as most children's upbringings are dysfunctional to a degree, my parents both chain smoked cigarettes and I lived on a council estate at certain points of my life and, I went to a Catholic school, but by 11 I was very clear about the strength of this electrical kundalini energy and fire that would pass through my body, and just found a book, thankfully, that just inspired me, which was called The Third Eye, and just made me realize that I'd had lives in Tibet and that I knew reincarnation to be an absolute reality for me. And so I had a very deep love of studying about religious things and got A grades in my O levels and used to debate with the nuns at the school that I went to when they would say to me, to talk about Catholic philosophy, and I'd say, well, I'm sorry, I can't agree that God would only ever give us one life, and that one person might be the Elephant Man, another person have the life of Princess Diana, and a third person be a starving Ethiopian. That's just so random. And even though I am actually an artist and very right-brained, my body couldn't take that in and absorb that, because I couldn't think that my grandmother, being Hindu, wouldn't go to heaven just because she didn't come through the doorway of the Christ.
Yes.
So I wanted to research it and to try and understand it more. So in that, I really deeply studied the Old Testament, the New Testament, and then went on in depth to study Hinduism, Sufism, the Tao, Buddhism, and all different traditions, which is what Ageless Wisdom's about, and to conclude and understand that all paths lead to the one, and that, consciousness is when we just actually can sit in our heart centers and have the capacity to be able to put ourselves into another person's shoes and develop wisdom.
So would you say there's any one right religion that you abide by?
I only abide by one thing, or attempt to, and it's the hardest thing, which is the laws of harmlessness. That's all that I attempt to do, and that's the hardest thing to do, but it's the only thing that actually in reality makes our chakras evolve. So over the years, basically to want to abide by the laws of harmlessness means that one's in a constant purification process of recognizing the levels that we're in realms of illusion. And so it's not about, for me, any one religion. I deeply, I could teach about the studies and the sutras, the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha, and I'm very well versed in all that Jesus as the Christ taught in the Piscean period, and all of it, because once we reach the center of our own being, it becomes levels of common sense. So for me, outside of any one stream of a path to get to the center, I recognize each one of them having their beautiful sacred purpose to take us to that place.
And obviously, studying so many religions, you've mentioned there like a common thread that run through them all, which would be the sort of, I suppose, not knowingly harming anyone.
Yeah, that's right. Which has to start with actually not harming ourselves. So this is how Kevin, I understand from basic esoteric ageless solar wisdom is this, that ultimately it starts when we begin our wake-up process. We begin to make time for stillness. And from making that time of stillness, we start to hear our inner voice and the programs that are imprinted into us, the conditioning that we've had as children, the conditioning we've had as a culture or society. And once we become aware of these inner voices within, what we start to notice is the beginning of the program of being judgmental, and that judgmental often is putting our own selves down. And the beginning of our wake-up process is to hear that voice and recognize that we've got a choice. We can continue to run this unconscious habit to continually put ourselves down and judge ourselves and think we're not good enough and really be harmful to ourselves, and therefore project that out to others. And that's the core levels of disharmony.
Right.
And so this is basically linked to our throat chakra. So what's stored in the throat chakra is all of that degree of negativity. So when a person begins that wake up and they start to hear their inner voice and actually make a choice not to say something negative and to catch themselves. So say, for instance, on a very grounded, practical level, all of us have done this, that we affirm constantly, oh, I'm really broke, I can't afford this. And we're just making this energy of, I don't deserve, and therefore not generating something positive. Then what happens is we begin to make a choice that we're not going to say something negative to that person, to criticize or put them down or judge them, or to ourselves. And as we do that, what happens then is that an alignment between our throat center to our sacral center starts to deepen, and the chi, the fire in our hara center or our sacral chakra, begins to turn a spiral in a clockwise way, where that energy starts to rise up through our body, which is what in the Vedas or Hinduism is taught about the science of Kundalini, that this chi and this fire starts to rise, cleansing and purifying, giving us more sensitivity. And then we start to notice that we've got more healing energy, we're feeling really positive, that we can intuit things more, and a bridge is built between the throat center and the sacral center. And this is the beginning stage of awakening.
So if we tune ourselves to become more positive in whatever situation, then it's actually, from what you're saying then, we're becoming more enlightened and more conscious.
There's a very first stage of being awake where we become conscious that we no longer want to live a life of being self-absorbed, self-centered and selfish, and that we actually want to start being uplifting and to align to the center of all existence, to the center of creation. So at this stage, what has to happen is we have to become still enough to become aware of this unconscious programming that wasn't even us in the first place, that continually puts ourselves down and puts everybody else down.
But what if, for example, that young lady that, as an example, looks in the mirror and says to herself in the morning, "I'm fat."
Exactly.
And you say to her, "Well, why are you being so negative towards yourself?" And they're coming from a different cultural perspective.
And that's such an important question, because as you possibly have read on my bio, what do I do for a living is I love to create beautiful clothes for people in their awakening to actually feel good about themselves, because culture has pushed us into a place of feeling that it's really not okay to have curves and lumps and bumps. And it's incredible. I dress women every day that if they're bigger than a size 12 or 14, that they think they're fat. Even my own 9-year-old daughter, is in this thing of like beginning to be aware of what's fat and what's thin. And so I really hear your question of how do we be able to deepen into looking at our divinity, and it's not about the physical body, and to be able to access that light within ourselves. Because actually, when we do, the outer falls away, and we can feel an embracing. I mean, I did grow up in a period of time where it was just the fashion to wear all black and be really skinny, and it was just a huge thing for me to just actually realize, it's really okay to have the shape of a woman and to, have those curves. It's a beautiful thing. But it takes, it's way beyond looking on the surface. And the beginning, this is what I always say to people, up until now, humanity hasn't been awakened. This is the first time on the planet that we're awakening collectively as one human family. And that the core and biggest, most important part of this awakening is to recognize that through owning our divinity, through embracing our divinity, that's when the work begins. Because it's not until we know ourselves to be divine can we start the work to transform and to transmute the bloodlines that we've been born through.
Yes, but not everyone's, as you call it, waking up, are they? Not everyone's going to go through this thinking pattern that you're speaking of, are they?
Well, that's where I am possibly in a bubble, and I own that I could be deluded in that. But everywhere that I go, I have to say I notice that huge amounts of people are. The younger children are waking up. They're feeling this, that they're beginning to question. And I meet people of all generations all over the world who are in this wake-up process, who recognize they want to serve humanity. It's not satisfying to be in this self-absorbed state where we're just in survival and doom and gloom and going to ride these huge waves, which are increasing at the moment, of fear of annihilation. I mean, we're at one of these pivotal points of humanity, which I think it's all part of the blessing of this unfolding, that we have nowhere else to go but within, because, it's a shaky time on this earth. We know that the economic structures are dissolving. That's Pluto in Capricorn. It's a time that, all the principles that are built on greed and selfishness have to be dissolved so that we can come together as a human family with common sense to restructure. That is everything that comes hand in hand with taking responsibility and not living out this victim consciousness, blame of the people outside of ourselves, because transformation starts from transforming our own personal lives so that we can actually radiate the light of tranquility and be at one with ourselves, because we know that our actions are right action each and every day, where we're in a place of looking, how can I serve, as opposed to what can I take.
Do you think every soul, though, is going to go through that transformation, or do you think some souls are on this level?
Really good question.
On this level, for example, well, they're not here to change.
They're
They're
not
here
in
just
that vibration.
No, they're
Okay.
here just to carry on like they are for whatever reason.
Two things I would like to answer to that. In my highest moments of in this life of illumination, just having the grace of sitting with an awakened Buddha and being in a level of consciousness where I was able to see all of the planet's evolution and all of humanity's evolution, what I really understood in that moment is that even the darkest of the dark is serving the light. There's nothing outside of that divine plan in its unfolding. Esoteric psychologists and people who've studied Ageless Wisdom would say that there's 1/3 of humanity on the planet that won't evolve at this round to the vibration of being in that taking responsibility and seeing ourselves as one family, and that there will be a shift and a separation that occurs where either they stay on what's now planet Earth or the people waking up are leaving. One of the two. I don't know which is which, but the bottom line is I no longer see it to be scary, because I really trust in what's unfolding. That it's not. If I look back on my life as little brown-skinned girl in Ealing at the age of 7, and then again at 14, and I used to sob my heart out and cry and just think, for God's sake, what kind of planet have I come into that there's apartheid on this planet? I mean, please help me understand, how could it be that in South Africa the very people that inherited that land are being treated that they can't even walk through the same door as a white person? And I did question things like that, and I'm not I don't have a particular thing. I feel equal to everybody, and I've got one white child and 3 dark brown skinned children. It's not like I've got a thing about colour, but I also, the whole thing of the superpowers and everything. So as a child, I would look at all these different things that were conflicting warlike situations, and in my life I saw that through sitting in deep meditation and being peaceful, Nelson Mandela for 25 years sat in that still point within himself and came out as president. I saw the Berlin Wall come down. I saw the superpowers shake hands. And I've seen progression. I saw my father that chain smoked when I was a kid, that I had to breathe in this disgusting cigarette smoke, be somebody who stood outside his own house to have a cigarette as he got older. Do you know what I mean? I saw progress, and I'm continuing to see evolution and progress. It's speeded up. I think that the technology that's available for free energy as we wake up and become whole within ourselves is so vast of what sits encoded within each person within humanity as they wake up.
Absolutely. And look, I want to. There's so many questions I've got for you right now, but I just want to go back to this self-love thing, and then we'll sort of move on from there. But do you think that's one of the main reasons that we are here consciously on planet Earth, is to sort of learn to love ourselves?
Oh, that's a really good question. I've never even contemplated that thought. All I know, and that I could answer with, is to say that I love the Buddhist principle that the Bodhisattva vow is this: all beings are ultimately enlightened. Only the mind obscures this. And that from that place, outside of the mind, before we were born into this dense matter of this family of humanity, that we actually took the vow that we would stay on this planet until all beings come back to that remembrance, that divine remembrance of their wholeness and that awakening. And in esoteric psychology, that this is how it's taught and understood. That imagine that, Kevin, we have a physical body, an emotional body, a mental body, a personality, and these are all vehicles that are built for the soul to express through. And the soul is, in fact, all the merit, the bodhicitta that we've accumulated through all of our different lifetimes of right action, our good intentions, our selflessness, our mantras and our prayers that we've made, all the songs that we've sung in gratitude. Through all of our lives, that energy is stored electronically in the plane, the causal plane, as each one of us has a unique geometry. It's like a unique flowering of our individuality. And above that energy of our soul is our spirit. And our spirit is the cosmic fire aspect of the deity that's the fragmentation of the one. And when I call it the one, I'm saying like what people call God, all that is goodness within everything. This atomic fire, cosmic fire. And so imagine that we've got this physical human body in this life, and that we keep incarnating. This is how it's looked at within esoteric psychology and ageless wisdom. We keep taking incarnation throughout the time and throughout the ages until we've built the channel in our spine and in our physical body to be able to take the fire of our cosmic aspect of our monadic flame or our spirit to be able to travel unimpeded all the way down. If you can imagine it coming through your crown chakra, spiraling down through the brow, down in through the throat, down through the heart center into the solar plex, spiraling down into the sacral center and eventually reaching down to the base center. And as it gets there, it awakens the sleeping serpent, the kundalini fire, and that then can travel back up unimpeded all the way until it actually has the fire to open the brow center. And when the brow center is open, that's when we can live in revelation, being present in the moment, outside of the matrix of doom and gloom, and be able to witness the good, the true, and the beautiful.
So, in essence, what you're saying then is, see the beauty in everyone.
And everything in
and
acceptance.
Everything.
And even when somebody's acting out agony and pain and hatred and violation, it doesn't mean that you have to embrace that as in, okay, come round for a cup of coffee, let's talk about it, I'll help you sort it out. But what it does mean is to recognize, to develop the love and the wisdom and the compassion to say, whoa, what has happened in your life that has made you this hateful, this much in disharmony, this much not in peace? But to have the discernment and the discrimination to recognize whether you're centered enough strong enough in your solar plex to stay calm, not go into an emotional reaction, and not attempt to try and sort something out that you're not capable of doing. Because that's one of the places that people fall and trip and stay on the emotional treadmill. And especially, of course, in relationships that happens.
Well, you say the emotional treadmill, but do you think that's one thing we're here to do is feel and understand our emotions? Do you think that,
we are here to feel and understand them, and we could stay on the emotional treadmill constantly analysing them and going round and round. I know that story very well personally. However, there's actually, and it can take 550 lifetimes, and it's said that the Christ as Jesus was the first person to have mastered his complete heart chakra, all 12 petals being open in love, wisdom and compassion, and the capacity to really deeply forgive, not from a place of superiority or separation, but to have real discernment, discrimination, to understand from that place of love. So yes, I do agree with you that we have to understand our emotions to be able to ascend or transcend that space to operate just from our emotional body. But the emotional body is only one plane of consciousness, one gateway of existence. It's not the totality.
So you don't think we come down here because perhaps where we've come from, we come here to sort of, to feel the situation, to the emotions.
I don't think that we're fallen to be on Earth. I do think that to take a body on Earth is a descent of consciousness. I think that we're multidimensional beings, which we have one part of us, and it's interesting that there's so many amazing movies that I believe to be describing this state. I just recently watched Source Code, which I absolutely loved, and Groundhog Day, The Matrix, Avatar. These are all showing these different dimensions of our own being. So on one aspect, the part of us that can never perish, that will always remain in its divinity, which exists on one plane of consciousness, the monadic plane, which is, the highest of ourselves. But in order to experience that highest of ourselves aspect, we have to build a bridge within our body. And that bridge is actually, that building is a scientific process. So it's about being able to unify the energy of our pituitary gland, our pineal gland, and our carotid glands, so that this secretion of energy can actually flow down through the spine. And actually that just brings me to a whole subject of one of the core things that's taking humanity way outside of this place of their center is having access to synthetic drugs that actually give them a euphoric feeling of these states of consciousness that would happen naturally through harmlessness, impeccability, right action, right attitude, that people are doing things like E and Coke and all these various different drugs because they want that feeling of expansion within themselves that could be unfolding naturally as the circuits open in our own bodies.
So you'd obviously condemn that kind of usage.
I feel very sad, because I've watched so many people really lose their center and all the merit that they've accumulated in different lives being burnt in their nadi system, their circuitry taken out of their center for this lifetime, which right now we are in one of the most auspicious points of humanity's ever been, which is that we're here in a collective wake-up, becoming aware that we have the responsibility and the capability to create a new Earth.
Okay, and I'm going to get into the new Earth as well. But do you think that the drugs you've just mentioned there is a way to sort of numb the emotional process?
Yeah, I think it's a way to distort. I think if there are two aspects of consciousness on the planet, one being solar and one being lunar, one being the source of radiation, the fire of all that's good, and then one that's polarizing that and sucking and taking and a kind of energy that some people would call cosmic astral evil, that when I've tuned in to understand how comes there is so much drugs, that we're in a drug culture, that our 15-year-olds, 12-year-olds taking MDMA and take it, and the 18-year-olds think nothing of going out and doing 2 lines of coke and just drinking themselves into oblivion weekend after weekend and staying numb. That's a concern to me as a mother.
Well, of course. I mean, and if you look at other cultures, it never happens.
Yeah, well, it's happening all over the world, even in South America, even in Nepal, even all over it's happening. It's happening everywhere. I live in Glastonbury, which is known to be the heart chakra of the planet, and I am seeing it, and it's a concern. It's a really deep concern, especially as, we have plant teacher medicines, for instance, which the Native Americans really knew about, and the people of the Amazon have known about, and the Aboriginals, which are plants that actually take you into states of consciousness to really begin to look at your life, take responsibility, help you to purify yourself, to become in a place of at-one-ment or atonement with and align with the source, and to be able to take that fire. There are things that can rebalance, and it's just, anyway, it's a whole subject within a subject.
This kind of comes back to where we were saying, is that when I was talked about emotions earlier on, my main point there really was, again, do you believe that emotions are the only true fact?
That's only one tiny aspect of our levels of consciousness. It's not, anyway, what I'm talking about today. I could give you my own opinion, but I'm actually attempting to be impersonal with that and to give you what's known as Ageless Wisdom, that's outside of me as Rita, this little woman's personal experience.
Yes.
It's more to do with a much bigger conscious understanding. This is what books like Treaties of Cosmic Fire are based on. And the emotional body just corresponds to the astral plane. It's only one plane of existence. And that is the plane of illusion and samsara, and it's astral. So the emotional body, which we process so much in, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but it's not like we can suppress it. We can only deepen in our consciousness to get to the place where we can actually transcend being in this constant emotional reaction to everything that comes towards us. In other words, here's another way of looking at it. We can manage to spend a week with our mother or our father or an ex-partner or one of our children that actually pushes all of our buttons and stay in our center and not go into this level of aggravation.
In saying that, though, I mean, if you were being attacked, you still have the right to defend yourself, don't you?
Of course, that's a different thing, and it's actually having the discernment, discrimination. How about it, looking at it like this? In my life, my world, I very rarely have locked the front door of my house or the back door. It's about what you're vibrating at as a frequency to, why would you be attacked? Do you know what I mean? It's like, why would one create that? And for instance, actually on that level, that's not like I'm saying I'm above being attacked, or if you're attacked, you're wrong for being attacked. But when we are attacked, it's only a reflection of what's gone on within ourselves that we feel we deserve at some level. And it's just interesting because, 2 years ago, an ex-business partner broke into my shop and was very energetically attacking of me, and that really brought me to my knees. And I really had to look within myself and say, wait a minute, why have I created this? Because if we are attacked, we have to look at why have we just created being attacked? And so in this case, I recognized it's because I chose to give my power away because I was scared of it. And therefore, I gave my power away because I didn't feel that I could be responsible around the financial side and the grown-up side of the business. I'd much rather be the right brain, creative side of the business. And so that was a very good slap for me to recognize I don't need to do that. And so once we begin to take responsibility for our lives, for every single thing that happens, and not play out victim consciousness. Even, and this is very difficult, if you've had a situation where you've been sexually abused as a child and violated, it takes a massive amount of consciousness to develop the forgiveness and looking at, why have I created this situation to come into my life? What could I benefit from this? And some of the most incredible, evolved, extraordinary human beings that I've met have had deep, deep levels of violation happen to them, and that they can bless it and say, well, this is the fire that I've needed to be able to polish the diamond that I am.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big leap of faith, isn't it, to, like you say, for the sexual abuse, especially of a young person, to, when they've matured and, and to be able to make some sense of it, if they are indeed a spiritual person, or even a religious person, in a sense, to take that that mindset to be able to say, to take full responsibility of everything that's occurred, including that, that's a huge leap, and I suppose it's not everyone that's going to go down that road, is it?
No, and it's not, but there's more and more that have and are, and thankfully and it's probably good if I talk about the difference between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius, the age to come.
Of course.
In relationship to this subject, because in the age of Pisces, the last 2,000-year period, which was all about, it was symbolized by the moment that Jesus asked John to baptize him in the waters. It's about the emotional purification. And so in the age of Pisces, the highest attainment we could have got to as a collective, as a planet, was to become devotional, to actually develop the energy of idealism and devotion. But obviously, as we know, idealism means to live an ideal, but not the truth. It's just a high ideal. And it also is ruled by the energy of mystery, martyrdom, feeling obligated and loyalty. It's all energies corresponding to the solar plex, or the emotional body. Now, in the age of Aquarius, which is ruled by the energy of the incoming ray of energy to the planet, is the cosmic divine order. It's the sacral center, the seventh ray. Cosmic divine order and ceremonial white magic. And this particular age is all about telepathic communion. And to be telepathic is very, very different to being a mystic and in psychism. Telepathy is about having an openness and a transparency, and that in that openness and transparency that we would have to know ourselves as one human family. If I do something to hurt you, Kevin, or your family, I'm hurting myself. And that's another whole stage of consciousness.
Yeah, and that comes from a lot from what I've discussed with previous guests, is this whole oneness.
Exactly.
So,
and that's like, it's very different to have that as a theoretical feeling of oneness, where we're attempting to feel like we're one family. It's a bit like having a Taurian 9-year-old daughter that actually is totally not into sharing, or particularly giving her clothes away, and then as she develops, recognizing from her own state of inner being that she does, once she goes to different countries and sees poverty and everything, that actually she does want to share what she's got. It's just like being that place of humanity being immature and only wanting to protect their own family. In a way, that's, I hope I'm not going to sound sexist in this, but it's very natural for women to see all children as theirs, but it's not so natural for men to see all children as theirs.
Well, without being sexist, I mean, I suppose a woman is a natural caretaker, aren't
Exactly. It is. It's that compassion and, those breasts in her heart center. They're like, the breasts are like the vortex coming out of her heart, and they just don't like to hear another baby cry, and they want to know what can they do to make somebody else feel peaceful.
But how does oneness work? And this is only a hypothetical question, and I hope I'm not being silly to ask it. But I get asked.
When you say how does oneness work, the bottom line of it is not like how does it work. Oneness exists. How does humanity to get into that consciousness is the question.
But if you're standing in a bread line,
yeah,
and you've got your children with you,
that's a very good question.
and someone's going to push in front of you, or you've got to, whatever the situation may be, you've got to, it's either them or you for food to survive for your family.
It's such a good question, because you know what, even though I'm half Indian, half Lebanese, and I've watched my family, my parents, adore to feed everybody, feed the neighbours, come in. They feel honoured if somebody comes into their house to eat. And when I'm abroad, the poorest of people will share their food with you, whereas we're in a culture where that seems crazy, where you wouldn't want to share your food, and you don't share if you're rich. You're not actually going to say, you're poorer than me, I'd like to share this with you. And so it's just a cultural thing. In nearly, probably about 85% of the countries around the world, the poorest people invite in very wealthy people and love to feed them. They feel like it's an honour thing, and that they would share what they've got, and it would be automatic. They would not feel, and in fact, I really was thinking about this the other day, because I've got a friend of mine living in Glastonbury, Dolores, that's half English and half Ghanaian, and I was just contemplating that her bloodline of the Ghanaian part just loves to share. She just, all the teenagers come round and she's cooking pots of food for them, whereas I have my kids with, the teenagers coming around. I'm not thinking I'm going to cook pots of food for them today. I've just done a 12-hour day or a 14-hour day, and, and they're saying, would it be possible to put pizza on in the oven? I'm not thinking, let me quickly whip them all up some food, whereas I've noticed Dolores, in her blood, it's just natural to do that. Whatever she's got is to do it. And I notice it all around the world, that the poor people are the ones who love to share.
It is, people will attack oneness. And I don't know whether it's a state of logic attack that attacks it, or if they do it out of fear. I will say this, I believe oneness can work. And I believe, just what you said, naturally people would share in a situation of hard times. But I think culturally we're so, not brainwashed in a sense, but conditioned to think in certain ways that, and I think that line
sorry to interrupt you
Go
there,
ahead.
Kevin, but I honestly can say that it's not about even culturally or anything. It's a state of where's our evolution of humanity.
Yes.
Let's just say that up until now, humanity hasn't been awake. This wasn't a sacred planet up until now. There's the Earth is, for me, I look out of my eyes and it's exquisite. There's so much beauty. I'm blown away that people aren't walking around in complete rapture by everything, because for me it's very, very vivid, the exquisiteness of the roses and the orchids as they are giving their gratitude to all existence, and everything seems ultra amazing to me. But my children have always said, Mum, you're just ultra cosmic and a little fairy, and you just have to come back down to earth. However, this place of what you're calling oneness, or what is oneness, is a process of time and space. It already exists. It's about when humanity dissolves, softens, stills itself to open their eyes, or the eye, to recognize that, oh my gosh, this is my home. This is the return to my heart. This is what the parable of the prodigal son was about, or whatever. It's just that coming, deepening, to come home to the heart, to recognize the oneness. The oneness was always there. The consciousness, the awareness is always there. It's only the emotional body that gets in the way, and the mind that obscures it. So to still ourselves and to make time to meditate, to breathe deeply through the nose, hold that breath. let it cleanse our emotional body, and then out through the mouth. Take a few deep breaths like that. That helps the process to look at how can we actually be in service. Where are we unconscious in our lives that we're just behaving in habitual patterns that are negative traits that are putting ourselves down and putting other people down?
And again, the meditation that you talk about, that's not an avoidance technique, no?
When you say meditation, do you mean like taking a few deep breaths, or?
Well, yes, the calmness, the centeredness that you talk about.
For me, when I talk about meditation, meditation can be change the pooey nappy, clean the kitchen, do the Groundhog Day routine. All of it can be a meditation. Gardening can be a meditation. Making love can be the most exquisite meditation. Everything is a meditation when we bring awareness and consciousness to our action or to the non-action. But if one wants to feel the fire of bliss, which isn't an emotional energy, it's not a rapture, but it's a current of fire that travels down through our whole being atomically and opening each cell in our body into millions of cells of liquid light and bliss, then that is very much about just dropping into the moment.
Okay.
But that doesn't happen theoretically. That happens through a process of evolution, because today what we've talked about, I've touched upon those 3 stages of our awakening. The first being stilling ourselves to hear the inner voice and the programs that are no longer serving us. And the second stage, developing the discernment, discrimination to close the doors of those that suck our energy and don't actually support us in our growth. And to actually surround ourselves with those that we recognize to be soul family, or in Buddhist tradition or Hindu tradition it would be called the Sangha, those that you recognize as the same resonance of frequency as you, that hold you in the light. And then the third stage of our awakening is when we have really developed enough right action for our brow center to open that takes us out of the matrix of doom and gloom.
That process earlier on of having, a very rough childhood, or whatever it may be, the drug addictions that we go through, and all those sorts of energies. Have we chosen to go through this process?
That's really important. That's probably the most important question
because if we have to take responsibility for it, well, where did it come from?
I would say that our soul is giving us the opportunities to grow and shine, evolve and expand through. And so yes, we are, we can. There are choices that we make that are not in alignment with the central spiritual sun that leads to karmic situations. All the tears that I've cried in this lifetime are my realization that how did I create having 4 kids with no fathers being present for them. Two of my children's dads have died, and the other one's just in his little La La Land story, not present for my beautiful children, and I've created that. I cannot get out of seeing that I've taken responsibility for that. So yes, I do believe that we have chosen situations to grow through, all of us, and that following that track of recognizing that leads us back into at-one-ment and deep, deep peace. Now, one of the things that I can offer is I am an esoteric astrologer, and one of the things of looking at a person's birth chart is to see what tools we've come in with to have as our expression and for our soul to shine through. And then through looking at a person's birth chart, you can actually also see what the transits are, where the planets are now, and how that's affecting us in our actual individual wake-up. So I can, Kevin, offer that, and people could see more about that on my website of Soul-Centred-Astrology.com, and book Skype readings if they would like to with me, so that I can actually go through it as an individual one-to-one process. And I do give workshops on the science of Kundalini and intimacy, and the highest levels of Tantra, and all sorts of things that I've touched upon today. And I try to make it as affordable as possible to make it available to everybody.
Okay. And again, to book a reading with yourself, is that done over the phone, or is that done via the post?
Via my website, the Soul-Centred Astrology.com. Then they can email me and I'll phone them and sort out a time and a place. Either they can meet me personally in Glastonbury or do it by Skype and camera.
Okay. And I suppose there is another angle to your work as well, which is the colours.
Yes.
And again, how can people get advice on what colours to wear?
Okay, well that, it's not just about the colours, but on that perspective, I've created an exquisite range of clothing for light workers or people in their wake-up to be nourished by colour and ethically produced clothes that are natural fibres. I work particularly with cashmere, and I love creating clothes that are for women that want to be women and for, that can embrace their curves and their beauty. And you can have a look at that on my website, Hraiz.com, which is RITAHRAIZ.com.
And where would you see your work going in the future? I mean, is there a new direction coming for yourself, or?
Well, I'm grateful to say I'm doing a book, and my painting, as part of my meditation, it's my favourite thing to do is to paint. So I've got beautiful art that's coming out and selling at the moment, and I'm also just about to launch my clothes collection on a show on Sky 200 that's called Imago, which is in relationship to the cells in a caterpillar just at that point where it thinks it's dying but it's transforming into a butterfly. So about the end of September on Sky 200, my clothes are going to be launched on a shopping channel called Imago.
Excellent.
Yay.
That's very exciting. Well, we'll put links on our website for yourself,
Thank you.
So anyone that's listening to this can go directly to there link up.
Bottom line for me is that my sole purpose is to want to inspire people to recognize and remember that there is a divine plan that's unfolding, and we're going through a very tough doorway where everything's speeding up, and that whatever we can do to align ourselves to our center of being and to the source of all existence, and to know that we can actually call upon our spiritual guides and protectors and the solar angel that's been with us since the beginning of time. That's something I would really love to inspire.
Well, Rita Hraiz, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kevin. Really appreciate that. Much love.
To find out more on Rita, go to my website, themoreshow.co.uk, and look up Rita Hraiz under past guests. Now, you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter to get the latest updates on the show, and don't forget that we have a TV show which goes out on Sky 201 and FreeSat 403 every Friday from 6 p.m. and Saturdays from 9. So until next time, thanks for listening.
If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The More Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.